Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good evening to all. I welcome you all to my live session, and I'm back with a new topic today. And the topic has been pre-decided. I have already mentioned the topic, and that is monitor model theory of second language acquisition. And this theory is definitely the most important and significant and popular theory of language acquisition, and I hope the students of ELT and linguistics will be benefited from my live session today. So I welcome you all to join as early as possible. And if you have got questions, any question regarding this live session on monitor model theory of language acquisition, you can write the questions on the comment section. I will try to answer them accordingly. And let us begin the theory. This theory actually was first proposed and introduced by Stephen Krashen. He was an American professor. He is still alive, an American professor of linguistics, and he invented the theory. And this theory actually talks about a very important doctrine, and that is language develops through meaningful interaction and communication. Acquisition is better than learning. I repeat, language develops through meaningful interaction and communication, and acquisition is better than learning. This is the theory. Now, I, in my previous live session, somehow gave some ideas about this theory when I was conducting a live session on learning English versus using English. On that live session, I talked about this theory partially. To some extent, I brought some ideas of this theory. So today I am going to discuss this theory in details. Language develops through meaningful interaction and communication. This is the first theoretical assumption of this theory. So how is it? In my previous live session, I talked about bicycle learning. I mean, no matter how you study upon a bicycle, unless you ride the bicycle, you are not learning how to ride it. So the practical use of language in the same way is more important than learning it. So no matter how you study on a language, you have to use the language to get the command over it. So language develops through meaningful interaction and communication. That means you have to use the language practically with people around. You have to communicate with people around. That's exactly what you need to do to get the command of the language, to get the command over the language. It is very important to use the language. And the second theoretical assumption is acquisition is better than learning. So what acquisition and learning is, we are going to talk about that later on. This theory has got 5 hypotheses. The first hypothesis is acquisition learning hypothesis. Second hypothesis is monitor hypothesis, the monitor hypothesis. Third hypothesis is the natural order hypothesis. Fourth one is the input hypothesis, and last but not the least, the effective filter hypothesis. So these are the 5 hypotheses this theory has. Now let us start our discussion with the first hypothesis, that is acquisition learning hypothesis. Now I am going to explain what acquisition and learning is all about. Acquisition is a subconscious process, and learning is a conscious process. The way we acquire our mother language since our childhood, this is an acquisition system. We don't need any special training. We do not have to learn grammatical rules and regulations. We are acquiring the mother language subconsciously. So this is how we actually acquire our mother tongue. And in case of learning a second language or a foreign language apart from our mother language, we go for the conscious procedure or conscious system. We are learning a second or a foreign or any other language apart from our mother language, not subconsciously, rather consciously. That means we have to use the conscious process to learn a second language or a foreign language or any other language apart from our mother language. This is what subconscious and conscious process is all about. In the subconscious process, we acquire our mother language, where we don't need any special training. We don't have to know the grammar rules, regulations, or syntactic orders of the language. We are acquiring the mother language subconsciously. And in case of a foreign language or a second language or any other language, we are actually learning the language consciously, because we have to learn the grammatical rules, syntactic orders, or syntactic structures of the language. So I hope you understand what is the basic difference between subconscious process and the conscious process of language learning and acquisition is. Now, let us move on with the second hypothesis of this theory, that is the monitor hypothesis. So I am going to discuss the monitor hypothesis elaboratively because it's a long hypothesis. So I will try to make you understand in a very concise way, but I will try to put all the information into it. Actually, the acquisition system that I have already mentioned works as the utterance initiator according to this theory, and the learning system works as the monitor or editor. I think you haven't understood. Okay, I am trying to explain that. Suppose I said, "You is happy." You is happy. This is a wrong sentence. My utterance initiation or my utterance initiator actually was "You is happy." So it is not actually a correct sentence, but you have got the message, what I tried to say or what I tried to mention. My utterance initiator helped me express the feeling or inner thought in a way that is not grammatically correct, but my expression was "You is happy." You got the message, what I tried to mean by that. I wanted to mean you are happy, but the sentence was wrong, but the message was clear. So utterance initiator is the subconscious process, is the work of the subconscious process, and the accuracy or the correction of the language is the work of the conscious process. That means you have to go for the grammar rules. Whenever I am producing the language incorrectly, you are getting the message, but you know that the language is wrong. So how to correct it? I will have to correct the language by using the monitor. Monitor actually plays the role of editor. I repeat, monitor actually plays the role of the editor of language. It will modify, correct, and edit the language. But expression is more important than monitor. Why is that? I'm going to explain that one by one. Actually, monitor, is concerned with the accuracy. That means the accurate production of language or speech. Whenever you are speaking something, even if in case of our own mother language, whenever we are trying to say something in Bangla, we deliberately make many grammatical mistakes. We are not 100% accurate, but monitor is the concern of grammatical rules and regulations. I mean, it is totally concerned with grammatical rules and regulations and the accuracy of the language. That means the correct production or correct articulation of language. That is what it is concerned about. So if you are actually producing something wrong, monitor will monitor it and try to edit it, correct it. That is the function of monitor is. I hope you understand. But people do not use monitor all the time. Learners do not use monitor all the time. They use monitor when three conditions are met. I mean, a learner will use monitor under three conditions. According to Krashen, the conditions are: number one is if he or she knows the rule. Number two is if he thinks about correctness. Number three, if he has enough time at his or her disposal. Suppose if a student or a learner knows the grammar rule, then he will actually try to correct his language. Otherwise, he will not be able to express himself correctly or accurately. But if he doesn't know if he knows the grammar rules, then definitely he will try to go for the actual or the correct production of language. Otherwise, he will deliberately make grammatical mistakes. But if he knows the grammar rule, he will use monitor and try to use the language correctly. So the first condition is he has to know the rules, if he or she knows the rule. The second condition of using monitor is if he or she thinks about correctness. If you think of a rickshaw puller, he is illiterate. He doesn't know the Bangla grammar. He doesn't know the use of Bangla grammar. He doesn't know the rules of Bangla. So he is using the language, making deliberate grammatical mistakes, but we understand what he actually tries to mean. He is expressing himself not grammatically correctly, but his expressions actually are working quite well. I mean, he is communicating with people around. So he doesn't think about correctness, even he doesn't know the rules. In case of a learner also, a language learner, when he is actually thinking about the correctness, suppose he is using the language informally with his friends, family members, or whoever it is with whom he has got a very informal relation, then definitely he will not think about correctness. But when he is going to give a conference speech, when he is actually attending a conference and trying to deliver a lecture over there, he has to be formal. Then he has to be accurate, 100% accurate in his expressions. He will try to correct his mistakes. I mean, he will try to use monitor all the time, because accuracy is very important in case of formal speech or formal communication. So then he will think about correctness. So the second condition of using monitor is learner has to think about correctness, whether he thinks about correctness or not. If he thinks about correctness, he will use monitor. If he doesn't, he will not use monitor. Number 3, last but not the least, the third and final condition for using monitor is if he or she has enough time at his or her disposal. Suppose a learner is using the language and he doesn't have enough time to prepare himself for the informal speech. He doesn't need any time for the informal speech actually. So he will not actually think about correctness. He will go for the fluency, not for the accuracy. But in case of attending a conference or giving a formal speech, what will he do? Or giving a formal presentation in the classroom, what would he do? He will go for the correct production of speech. Then he will think about correctness and he has enough time to prepare himself. He will try to prepare his lecture notes correctly. The language has to be correct and accurate. He will not only deal with fluency but also with accuracy. I hope you understand. So learners are not using monitor all the time. They will use monitor under 3 conditions. I have already mentioned them. Now, according to the use of monitor, learners are divided into 3 categories. Number 1 is overuser. Number 2 is underusers. And last but not the least, optimal users. Who are the overusers of monitor? Those learners are the overusers of monitor who use monitor all the time. Most of the time they use monitor. They always think about correctness. That if I am saying it, it might be wrong. If I say it not be correct, it would not be correct. So I would always have to be concerned about accuracy. So these type of learners actually use monitor all the time. And that's why they are introvert kind of learners. They are not expressive enough. They remain silent most of the time. Because of that accuracy concern, a mental block is created because they are not thinking about fluency. They are always thinking about correctness. If I say this, it might be wrong. If I say that, I might be wrong. Then they always think about correctness and they use monitor all the time. So they are overusers and introverts, introvert kind of learners. And number two, the second category of users of monitors, they are underusers. Underusers do not use monitor. They do not use monitor at all. They only think about fluency. They just want to express themselves, and they're very much expressive inside the classroom or inside any formal or informal occasions. They're trying to communicate with people freely. They are always concerned with fluency. These types of learners are underusers of monitor. They do not use monitor at all. They are underusers, and they are fluent as they are not concerned with grammatical accuracy. They are just concerned with production of speech, production of language or communication. They try to express themselves, and they are very much expressive inside the class. They are extroverts. So underusers of monitors are extroverts kinds of learners. And last but not the least, the third category, that is optimal users. Optimal users of monitor are those learners who actually use monitor perfectly, or they actually go for the judicial use of monitor. I mean, when they feel like it is really important to use monitor, they use the monitor. If they feel like it is not actually necessary to use monitor right now, they will not go for the use of monitor. They always are concerned with the actual use. I mean, they are very much concerned with the judicial use of monitor. When they feel like it is important to use monitor, they will use it, and when it is not needed, when the use of monitor is relaxed, then they will not use monitor. In case of informal speech, they will not use monitor. They will not go for the accuracy. But in case of formal speech, they will try to be accurate, and they will try to use monitor as much as they can. They are known as the optimal users of monitor. So this is what monitor hypothesis is all about. It's a long hypothesis. I tried to make you understand concisely. I don't know how much I've been able to do that. I tried my best. If you have any question regarding this monitor hypothesis, you can ask me. You can write your questions on the comment section. I'll try to answer them accordingly. Now, the third hypothesis is the natural order hypothesis. So what is the natural order hypothesis? Actually, as this theory thinks that acquisition is better than learning, the second assumption of this theory, because we actually acquire mother language much better than any other language. Why is that? Because we are learning or acquiring the language subconsciously. So acquisition is always better. Just like if you watch Hindi serials and you're picking up Hindi language subconsciously, you are not actually learning the rules and regulations or syntactic structure or grammar of Hindi language, but you are actually learning Hindi just by watching the Hindi serials. How is it possible? It is happening subconsciously. So the subconscious process is much more stronger, much more effective than the conscious process. That is what is happening in case of acquisition and learning. Acquisition is always better than learning. And as acquisition is better than learning, this theory actually is against any kind of grammatical sequencing. The natural order hypothesis do not actually support, it doesn't support any kind of grammatical sequencing, as it is concerned with acquisition is better than learning. Like some people might be very much strong in tense, some might be weak in tense, some might be strong in voice, some students are weak in voice. So it depends. So this natural order hypothesis actually is against any kind of grammatical sequencing, that this part of grammar should be taught earlier, this part should be taught later. They are not in favor of that. I mean, this theory is not in favor of that. This theory is totally against any kind of grammatical ordering or sequencing or grading. I hope you understand. Now, the next hypothesis of this theory, I mean the fourth hypothesis, that is the input hypothesis. So what is input hypothesis? First of all, we need to know what input and intake is. When a language learner comes across a language item that is known as input, it might be any item of language. If a language learner comes across a language item that is known as input, and intake will not happen unless he is able to produce that input himself. Unless he is able to produce that item by himself. Like if I am teaching one of my learners or students present continuous tense, suppose. So I gave him the structure and I gave him an example. Now if I tell him to produce another sentence, I gave him one sentence of gave him the structure and one sentence of present continuous tense, and I tell him to produce another sentence using the structure of present continuous tense. So he came across a language item, but if he is not able to produce it, intake will not happen. The moment he is able to produce that item by himself, intake will take place. I hope you understand what input and intake is. And I'm giving another example. I teach him a vocabulary. I teach him a new word. And intake will not happen unless he is able to use that word by himself. Unless he is able to produce new sentences using that word that I taught him. When I gave him the word, he came across a language item that is input, and intake will not happen unless he is able to use that item by himself. I hope you understand. And this theory thinks that comprehensible input, this hypothesis, input hypothesis, thinks that comprehensible input has to be a little beyond the learner's present level of competence or current level of competence. That means I+1. Suppose I already know something, then what's the use of teaching me the same thing again? I have to give input one step beyond your present level of competence. It has to be decided by the teacher, and he has to know the psychology and the background of the students. How much does he know? So I have to give the input accordingly. If I teach him what already he knows, then that's no use of teaching. There is no use of teaching the same thing again. So I'll have to give the input one step beyond what he already knows. That is called I+1. So the comprehensible input has to be one step beyond the current level of competence. So this is what input hypothesis is concerned about. Now let us talk about the final hypothesis, the last hypothesis of the monitor model theory of second language acquisition, and that is effective filter hypothesis. I repeat, the effective filter hypothesis. This is the last hypothesis of monitor model theory. So what is effective filter hypothesis about? Well, this theory actually, this hypothesis actually talks about three important criteria: motivation, self-confidence, and anxiety. I repeat, motivation, self-confidence, and anxiety. If a learner has got high motivation, high self-confidence, and low anxiety, then language acquisition will be much more effective and higher. And if the learner has low motivation, high anxiety, and low self-confidence, then language acquisition will be lower and not effective. So what motivation is? Suppose you are staying in England, then all the people around you are speaking in English, so you are motivated to speak English. So unless you are motivated to speak in English or use the language, then you are not able to communicate with other people effectively in English. So the motivation is very important. In England, if you stay for 2 years or 3 years, you will learn English language much more effectively because you are motivated to speak English. But in our country, inside our classroom, most of the teachers are using Bangla language with the students, and as a result, the students are not being motivated enough to speak or use the language most of the time. And that's why motivation is very important. High motivation is good for language acquisition, and low motivation is bad for language acquisition. I hope you understand. Self-confidence. What is self-confidence? Well, if you always think about grammar, always think about accuracy, then you will not be able to gain good confidence. You will actually have less confidence if you are always concerned about accuracy, because you have to go for the actual production. You have to use the language confidently. But if you are thinking of monitor, grammatical rules and regulations and the correct production of language, then your fluency will be hampered, your self-confidence will go down, you will not be able to use the language properly. There will be a mental block will be created. Am I clear? So low self-confidence creates mental block and hampers the language acquisition process. And what is anxiety? Anxiety happens in many ways, because using a foreign language is always a concern for the learners, because whenever you are going to attend a party wearing a new dress, you think of 100 times, if I wear this, will I look good? If I wear that, will it suit me? You think of 100 times. In the same way, when a language learner is using a language, he is always concerned about how will I look like? Whether my production of speech will be correct or not. He is always concerned with accuracy. He is always thinking about the correct production of speech, and that is why the mental block is created and his fluency is being hampered, and he is remaining introvert. He is not using the language. So anxiety creates mental block. You have to be confident. You have to remove your anxiety. You have to use the language freely, just like a child does. A child, when he starts speaking for the first time, it makes 100 mistakes, but we encourage the child. We encourage the child to produce the language again. When he produces something wrong, when he actually says or utters a word by mistake, and we call him to repeat it again, we tell him to repeat it again, and we encourage the child. Actually, when it starts producing language, it's not correct 100%. He makes deliberate mistakes, but from his mistakes he is learning the language. So in the same way, using the language is very important. You have to try to speak, you have to try to communicate, no matter how much mistake you commit. That doesn't count. You try to speak fluently, and then thereby you try to regain your confidence, remove your anxiety, and try to be motivated. Motivation is very important. Just like as I said, we motivate the child, we encourage the child to speak. In the same way, motivation has to come from the surroundings. Am I clear? So high motivation, high self-confidence, and low anxiety are good for language acquisition. Low motivation, low self-confidence, and high anxiety create mental block and hamper language acquisition. I hope you understand. So this is what monitor model theory is all about. I have already discussed the 5 hypotheses of monitor model theory for second language acquisition, and I hope you have understood. If you have any question, even if you are not asking me questions during my live sessions, you can actually write to me by commenting on my page, or even you can text me through the message section of my page. You can ask me any question regarding English grammar, ELT and linguistics. I will always try to help you. I am always there for you, and I will try to help you, guide you. And this page is for the students, for any kind of learner who are very much enthusiastic and interested to learn English and use English. ELT linguistics students are also encouraged, and nowadays I am conducting most of the sessions for the ELT and linguistics students. Later on I will come back with the English language and grammar sessions as well. So anyway, I hope I have been able to make you understand what monitor model theory is all about. In my next live session, I'll bring a new topic and I'll try to discuss it with all of you, and I'll try to make you understand. I'll try to explain elaboratively. So I hope this page will help you in many extents. So that's all for tonight. I have come to an end, and thank you very much for attending my live sessions, those who have joined. And it's goodbye from here. Good night. Take care.